Hello, this is Max. The girl is looking for her father. In the process, she gets rid of the bad guys and saves the world from a deadly virus. Don't forget to subscribe. Queen Himiko, ruling with dark magic, brought death and destruction with a mere touch. Her own generals eventually captured and exiled her to a desolate island. Lord Richard Croft, discovering an ancient map showing Himiko's location, vowed to find her, even if it meant leaving his daughter, Lara. In London, Lara participated in a mixed martial arts match, but was overpowered and forced to tap out. After her job as a bike courier, she heard about a fox hunt where bikers chase a rider leaving a paint trail. Intrigued, Lara volunteered to be the fox. On the day of the hunt, she raced through the city with a paint bucket attached to her bike, skillfully evading her pursuers. She jumped onto a truck to confuse the bikers and continued to evade them through a park. While riding on a quiet street, she was distracted by a man who reminded her of her father and crashed into a police car. At the station, Richard's business partner, Anna Miller, bailed her out. Lara, though cold towards Anna, thanked her. Anna reminded Lara that she didn't need the prize money since she had her inheritance, but Lara refused to accept it. It had been 7 years since Richard disappeared, and Anna urged Lara to declare him dead to settle his estate. That night, Lara reminisced about her father. Richard had given her a jade necklace that belonged to her mother, telling her that holding the pendant while thinking of someone would let that person know they were being thought of. The next day, Lara visits the Croft Holdings building to sign the papers to declare her father, Richard, dead. Before she signs, the lawyer presents her with a Japanese puzzle called a karakuri. Lara solves the puzzle, revealing a hidden letter and a key. The letter mentions the first letter at his final destination, and Lara immediately understands its meaning. Returning to Croft Manor, Lara goes to her father's tomb, presses the letter "R" for Richard, and discovers a hidden keyhole. She inserts the key from the puzzle, causing the other side of the tomb to open, revealing Richard's secret office. Inside, Lara finds fake passports and an old video camera. Watching her father's recorded message, she learns that after her mother's death, Richard sought a way to another realm to reunite with her. He asks Lara to burn all his research on the Himiko project to prevent it from falling into the wrong hands. Instead of destroying the research, Lara examines it and learns about the legend of Himiko and the lost island of Yamatai. She discovers Richard planned to travel to Yamatai and finds the name of the ship captain who was to take him there. Without signing the papers, Lara doesn't have access to her inheritance, so she pawns her jade necklace to fund her trip. Days later, she arrives in Hong Kong to search for the ship captain. A group of young men offers help, but ends up stealing her bag. Lara chases them over boats and through a marketplace, eventually tackling the thief and retrieving her bag. The man threatens her with a knife, but Lara escapes by swinging on a hook. She finds the ship, the Endurance, but the men corner her again. The captain, Lu Ren, fires a warning shot, scaring the men away. Lu, however, is drunk and collapses. Lara wakes him by spraying him with a shower and interrogates him about her father. She shows him Richard's message, but Lu reveals that Richard likely contacted his father, who has the same name but is also missing. Realizing their fathers disappeared on the same trip, Lara shares that they were headed to Yamatai. She shows Lu Richard's journal, which contains a code she assumes are coordinates. Lu points out that the codes are actually clock hands, helping Lara decipher the island's location. Despite the island being in the dangerous Devil's Sea, Lu initially refuses to help. However, upon seeing a childhood photo with his father, he reconsiders. Lara, deducing that Lu lost a gambling game the previous night, offers him money to assist her. On their way to Yamatai, Lara reads Richard's journal and finds an ancient puzzle among his belongings. She learns that Himiko is sealed behind an elaborate door, which Richard had figured out how to open. The tomb holds many obstacles, including the Chasm of Souls, the faces of Himiko, and her army of 1,000 handmaidens, before reaching Himiko's resting place. Richard had been monitored by the Order of Trinity, a militant organization aiming to control the supernatural to dominate mankind. He feared they would use Himiko as a weapon. One night, Lara wakes to find the ship caught in a violent storm. She rushes to the bridge, where Lu struggles to control the vessel. Realizing they're near Yamatai, Lara heads back to her cabin to retrieve her father's journal, leaving the ancient puzzle behind. The ship crashes, and Lara leaps into the water, losing sight of Lou in the chaos. Lara eventually washes ashore, but is knocked out by an unknown assailant. She wakes in a tent and meets Matthias Vogel, who reveals he has Richard's journal and thanks her for delivering it. He recounts that Richard refused to cooperate, so he killed him, devastating Lara. Stepping outside, Lara sees workers using explosives on the mountain, with armed guards overseeing them. She spots Lou, also captured and forced to work. Vogel announces they are moving camp. On the way, Lou shares that the workers are shipwrecked fishermen or smuggler victims. Lara tells him Vogel killed Richard, and Lou adds that Vogel also killed his father. Lara apologizes for bringing him to the island. Using Richard's journal, Vogel finds the entrance to Himiko's tomb. The workers, including Lara and Lou, start uncovering the door. When an elderly man collapses, a guard orders him to work. Lara and Lou defend him, but Vogel shoots the worker. Lou grabs a shovel and attacks a guard to help Lara escape. She runs into the jungle, with Lou trying to follow, but Vogel shoots him in the arm. Lara reaches a cliff and tries to cross a fallen log, but falls into the river when men fire at her. She clings to the wing of a broken plane and climbs onto it, but the wing breaks. She runs to the fuselage just before the wing snaps, but the plane drops between two cliffs. Lara grabs an old parachute and opens it as she falls, crash landing in the jungle and getting stabbed by a small branch, which she painfully pulls out. That evening, hiding in a cave, Lara hears something outside and steps out. Vogel's man, Rocket, grabs her. Lara bites his arm, forcing him to release her. They fight, but Rocket overpowers her. In desperation, Lara hits him with a rock and drowns him in a puddle. Shocked at having killed someone, she backs away. She then spots a figure in the dark and chases after him, discovering it is Richard climbing a cliff. She climbs the rocks and finds Richard in his camp, but he initially refuses to believe she's real. Lara desperately convinces him, and Richard, tearful, asks why she's there. Seeing her wound, Richard patches it up and lets her rest, promising not to leave her. The next day, the workers uncover the entrance to Himiko's tomb, and Vogel contacts his employers. Meanwhile, Lara wakes to find Richard cleaning up. As she helps him trim his beard, Richard confides that leaving her was the hardest thing he ever did, but Himiko's power trapped him on the island. He reveals that Vogel works for the Trinity and must be stopped from reaching Himiko. Richard is confident Lara burned his research, but she confesses she didn't. Panicked, Richard laments that she delivered the journal to Vogel, but Lara argues that using it was the only way to find him. Richard insists that opening the tomb will unleash Himiko's curse on the world. Lara urges him to leave the island using Vogel's satellite phone, reminding him that he taught her never to give up. Richard, however, claims he's no longer that man. Unwilling to give up, Lara takes a bow and arrows and heads back to Vogel's camp. Lara sneaks into Vogel's tent, but hides when he arrives. He receives a message that his employer's transport is nearby, but he hasn't deciphered the code to open the entrance. Lara slips out and catches Lou's attention. She shoots the guard watching the workers and instructs them to arm themselves while she retrieves the satellite phone to escape the island. Lara sees Vogel leaving the tent and urges Lou to lead the others away while she heads for the tent. She retrieves the phone, but stops when she finds Richard approaching the tomb entrance. Vogel corners Richard, demanding he open the tomb so Vogel can return to his family. Richard argues that opening the tomb will doom them all. Knowing Richard won't cooperate, Vogel orders his guard to execute him, but Lara shoots the guard before he can fire. She aims at Vogel, but he holds Richard at gunpoint. Vogel asks Lara to convince Richard to open the tomb, suggesting she doesn't believe in the myth. After much thought, Lara decides not to let her father die just after finding him, so she volunteers to open the door. Remembering how she solved the ancient puzzle before, Lara arranges the wheels on the entrance. Suddenly, the door collapses, revealing a pit. Lara, Richard, Vogel, and his team enter the tomb. When they feel a gust of wind, Richard believes that Himiko is still breathing, but Vogel argues that it's just the change in air pressure. Suddenly, Lara steps on a trigger, and spears come out of the floor, killing one of the guards. Afterward, they reach a chasm of skeletal remains, which Lara identifies as the Chasm of Souls. They set a ladder to cross to the other side, where they find sculptures of Himiko's faces. A guard steps on another trigger, causing circular doors to trap them inside. Suddenly, the floor starts to collapse. Lara notices that the guard on the other side of a door is peeking at them. She realizes the hole he's looking through is a keyhole, so they try using the prayer wheels from the wall as keys. Suddenly, the floor beneath Lara collapses, but she holds on to the door. The door still doesn't open, so Lara remembers the riddle from the entrance and figures that they need to combine the yellow and blue prayer wheels to create a green wheel, the color of life. Finally, the door opens, and they find a ruined pagoda. Inside, they discover the tombs of Himiko's handmaidens who sacrificed themselves to serve Himiko in the afterlife. Witnessing everything exactly as Richard described, Lara begins to wonder if the myths were true. Finally, they reach Himiko's coffin. Richard tries to convince Vogel not to open the coffin, but Vogel dismisses the myth. The guards open the coffin, revealing Himiko's corpse inside. Suddenly, Himiko's eyes open, but her body starts to rot immediately. Lara notices that the paintings in the tomb don't portray Himiko as a monster. She recalls the riddle that Himiko must die to bring back life and that she spreads death with a touch. Lara stops the men from moving Himiko, explaining that Himiko sacrificed herself to protect the world. They don't listen, and when they touch the body, Himiko rises from the coffin. Vogel thinks it's just a trick when he sees gears in the coffin. However, one of the guards who touched the body sees his hands turning black. His flesh begins to rot, confirming that Himiko was a carrier of a virus, so she locked herself away to contain the disease. The guard screams in pain and fires his gun out of panic, killing the other infected guard. Vogel then shoots him down. Despite witnessing the horrific effects of Himiko's curse, Vogel decides to take Himiko's finger to his employers. While he's distracted, Lara grabs a pickaxe and attacks the last guard. Meanwhile, Richard retrieves a gun from a dead guard and shoots Vogel in the leg. The guard chases after Lara as she runs out. Vogel offers Richard a chance to go home, but Richard refuses to let him take the disease off the island. Vogel runs out of bullets, and the infected guard rises and attacks Richard. Distracted, Vogel flees. Richard manages to shoot the infected guard, but is touched in the process, so he makes a tourniquet to slow down the disease. Lara hides in one of the handmaidens' tombs, but causes the bones to crack, revealing her location. The tomb collapses under their combined weight, sending Lara into another room. She spots a trigger and steps on it, releasing multiple spiked logs that eventually kill the guard. Lara returns to Himiko's tomb, but Richard keeps her away, explaining that he's infected. He tells her to stop Vogel and destroy Himiko's tomb. Though Lara begs to save him, Richard accepts his fate, grateful for the chance to see her again. Tearfully, Lara says goodbye to her father and grabs the pickaxe. As Vogel crosses the chasm, Lara leaps and climbs onto the ladder to block him. She kicks him back, but Vogel grabs her by the neck. She throws him over and locks her legs around his neck, eventually kicking him off. Determined to trap him, Lara drops the ladder into the chasm. Vogel grabs the pickaxe and swings at her, knocking her down and pinning her. However, Richard triggers the explosives around Himiko's tomb, distracting Vogel. Lara takes the opportunity to kick him, grabs the bag containing Himiko's finger, and shoves it down his throat, infecting him before sending him into the chasm. The place begins to collapse. Lara grabs the pickaxe and leaps to the other side, stabbing it into the floor to climb over. She then runs out of the tunnel. Later, Lou finds her climbing out of a hole and helps her out. They spot a helicopter from the Trinity and force the pilots to take them home. Back in London, Lara finally signs the papers to declare Richard dead. Anna notes that Lara is now in charge of the company, but Lara delegates the business responsibilities to her. As she examines the Croft Holdings ledger, she discovers that they own Patna, the company that supplied Vogel's camp. Lara returns to Richard's secret office and reviews his research on the Trinity. She suspects Anna is a Trinity agent, recalling Anna's insistence on her inheriting the company. Soon, Lara visits the pawn shop to buy back her jade necklace. She also notices a pair of pistols and decides to buy two. If you are interested in such films, please proceed to the next video on the screen and also share your thoughts about this film in the comments. Give us a like and subscribe. Goodbye.